Here's a striking fact. There are two factors that together allow us to determine with a great degree of accuracy how well off a person will be materially in this world. And those two factors, which more or less drown out everything else, are the country in which that person happens to be born, and second, the income class of their parents within that country. So to focus just on one parameter, these two factors alone can explain about 80% of the variability in the global distribution of income. Now, since these two factors are set for a person at the moment of their birth, what this means is that other things we would like to think matter a lot in determining our outcomes in life, things like our character, our choices, in short, merit, actually play a much smaller role than we would all like to think. Now, for those born in very affluent countries, this might seem very counterintuitive, because we experience our life often as very much determined by what we choose to do, by the virtues of our character. It seems at least to have a fighting chance against the vicissitudes of fate. But once you take into account that extra factor, that ultimate twist of fate, being born here rather than somewhere else, this is very quickly revealed as an illusion. If you look at your life from a global perspective, then it becomes clear that merit is basically in the passenger's seat, and fate is doing most of the driving. I find it illuminating to think of being born as participating in a global birth lottery. And this lottery determines our chances of success and of failure in life from the very moment we are born. Now, what kind of a lottery is it? Well, it's a very cruel lottery. And in order to see why, we need to look at some of the figures concerning equality and poverty in the world. So first, consider the distribution of income across the globe. So the first, if we divide the population of the world into 4 equal quarters, 90% of the income is concentrated at the top 25%, 46% just at the top 5%. The next quarter has 6.74%, the next quarter has 2.14%, and the bottom quarter holds only 0.78% of the total global income. Now what that means is that if you have a one shot of being born in any family in the world, most of the chances are that you will hold a very small share of the global income. The second thing to consider is the risk you run to be at the very bottom of that inequality and to suffer the very extreme harms of global poverty. So running the numbers very roughly, you have about a 13% chance in this lottery to be born to a family that's under the international poverty line, and you have about a 30% chance of being born in a family in such a way that you lack access to essential medicines, and a 13% of being chronically malnourished. This is not a game that we would choose to play. So what makes the global lottery of birth so tragic is the combination of the inequalities of the distribution of goods and wealth globally, together with just how dire conditions are at the bottom of that inequality. I am one of the people who have lucked out in the global lottery of birth. I was born in Israel, a relatively affluent country, to a relatively affluent family. These circumstances have fated me to the top 5% of global wealth. And one of the things that this luck has made it possible for me to do is to follow a dream to study philosophy in the university and to now be writing a dissertation in moral philosophy here at Yale. As somebody who works in moral philosophy, I ask myself, what is the moral significance of having won an unfair lottery? And the answer I've come very strongly to believe is that winning an unfair lottery generates a special kind of moral duty. And that's the duty to make use of your luck to the best of your ability to change the terms of the lottery, to make it more fair and to make the role of those factors which are completely not up to your control, like where you were born and to whom, much less of a determining force in the life of people in the world. Okay, so there's a moral duty, but of course having a moral duty without knowing how to discharge it is quite useless. So what exactly can people like me, like you, do in order to meet that duty? Well, there are things that we all can do For example, we can donate to the best life-saving charities, and we can donate to those organizations who are campaigning to change the structural causes of poverty. And if you look at this slide, I have some suggestions for my favorite websites in which you can learn how to do this most effectively. But for the rest of my talk, I'd like to focus on what academics in particular can do in order to meet this duty. For the past year and a half, I've been working with a very interesting organization called Academics Stand Against Poverty, or ASAP for short. What ASAP is an organization dedicated precisely to helping academics leverage their position as members of academia in order to have an impact on global poverty. And it's a network of scholars from various fields, from philosophers like myself to economists, political theorists, what have you. One of the challenges we're facing at ASAP is dealing with the type of obstacles which typically hinder academics from achieving impact. One of the more interesting ones is a natural tendency that anyone in academia, I think, will recognize, and that's our natural tendency towards focusing on where we disagree and on new and theoretical disagreements at the expense of pointing areas of wide agreement and building coalition. Now, why is this a natural tendency? Well, anybody who's been part of the academic rat race will know that you get rewarded, you get promoted, published, etc., by showing how you're different from the other guy. Like if you meet another academic, you need to explain why they're kind of an idiot, right, in polite terms, if you want to get ahead. You never get rewarded by showing, look how much we agree. Look how much what I'm saying, coheres with what other people are saying. Now that's all well and good, but the thing is that it's part of the essence of political efficacy to build coalitions and to work with broad camps based on a wide agreement. So there's something in the natural professional tendencies of academia that doesn't cohere well with the basic principles of effective political action. And we're trying to address that partially by helping academics build coalitions and work collaboratively, both with other academics and with people outside of academia. A case in point is one of our flagship projects, the Global Poverty Consensus Report. This project is predicated on the idea that while there's real disagreement about the causes and remedies of global poverty, there's much more overlapping consensus hidden behind the surface that would appear from the first glance. And what this project aims to do is to, through focused dialogue with academics and members of civil society from different disciplines, approaches, and places in the world, build and identify that consensus on the essential things concerning the alleviation of poverty that lies beyond the surface of academic controversy, and to articulate it clearly in a way that can be accessible both to the public and to policymakers. Our hope is that the force of a broad coalition of academics advocating together based on a common platform will increase our collective chances of having a real impact on important policy processes, such as, for example, the replacement of the Millennium Development Goals, which hopefully will occur after 2015. Now, addressing something as complex as the structural roots of poverty is a very difficult task, and it will require politicians, academics, and activists to work together more closely than we ever have before. I think that although this task is very difficult, it is definitely not an impossible one. And I've come to believe that it's a challenge we can meet. It just requires from us a lot of will, a moral purpose, and of course, and as always, luck. Thank you very much.